Okay, hello. This is a slightly new setup for me. I got a new chair. It's a little squeaky, um, but a lot more comfortable, so I can lean back. But it's actually a little hard for me to see the screen from here, which is fine because I can see the camera just fine. But I don't have contacts in, and if I wear glasses, it's going to produce kind of a funny effect with the light ring. So yeah, so we'll just see how this goes. A slightly different setup goes for tonight. So yeah, I'm feeling quite excited. I'm really like I feel a lot of freedom, a lot of energy. It feels sort of like I've been slogging through a dark cave for a number of days at this point. Um, there's a very quiet, um, sad sort of weight that will come across me when it's time to digest something dark and slow. I think of this as like if I'm borrowing from esoteric philosophy, there's a piece here that's a bit of um, like receiving a visit from Saturn. Saturn saying, it's time to pay attention to something that you don't want to pay attention to. Oh, okay. Learning how to lean into that. So it feels sort of like slogging through a dark cave, and now coming out the other side. I'm seeing a light, and I'm going, oh, I think I see. Like this turned out to be a lot easier than I was expecting. This is great. So I want to share a little bit about this. One of my key puzzles I've been staring at for a lot of the time I've been doing these videos is basically how do I actually change a pattern? What I mean by that is for things like when I am like so for instance, I have some leaning towards a rescuer pattern, which is to say that I keep having this tendency to look at the world as broken, as having these problems that I need to try to fix, and that I'm smart enough and I have enough energy and care that maybe I can really do something. Oh, but look, it is so difficult for me. But in this struggle, I'm getting meaning. I talked about this yesterday, the fact that if I'm getting value from the struggle, then I dare not win, because then that value will evaporate. But still, even knowing that, I would run into this challenge of I would feel the rescuer energy arise in my body. And sometimes I would notice it because I recognize the thoughts. Oh, like, so here's a point of leverage. Wait, leverage. Like I'm trying to use the world, like I'm trying to manipulate the world, like I'm viewing the world as wrong, as broken, and certainly not as perfect. So that means that there is a way where I am judging the present moment and I'm holding it at a distance. So I'm not seeing things clearly. There's a particular way I'm not seeing things clearly. How exactly am I not seeing them clearly? Right? So I can catch that and then go, wait, what produced that thought? Trace it back into the body. Oh, right, there's the rescuer energy. There's the rescuer energy. In this one, I'm not trying to describe the details of the rescuer energy or why that's a problem. I have previous videos where I talk about that. So if you're looking at this going, well, what's wrong with trying to make the world better? I actually have no problem with pouring my energies towards making things better, for some definition of better. But there is a problem with trying to fix things. And that's what I'm attending to. That's what I'm trying to track. So I was looking at that, and I notice how the more I train my mind on, okay, well, let me notice this rescuer energy, this inclination to save, to be better than, to need the effort to create something good in order to get value and meaning. Okay, well, that's a broken system. So let me track the energy before it even reaches my mind, and then I can get good at that. But what makes the energy arise? I can catch it in earlier and earlier stages, but it feels a little bit like I'm mowing weeds. I'm taking this lawnmower and I'm going across a bunch of weeds. And yeah, I can mow more regularly. I can get better lawnmowers and mow it closer to the ground. I can reach down and yank the leaves out, but how do I pull out the roots? If I reach down and grab and yank, usually something breaks off and the roots are still in the ground and it just regrows. How do I uproot this rescuer pattern, for instance? This is not the only example. I have many, many, many examples. I still have some inclination towards some clinginess in my romantic relationships. Well, my relationship right now, just one. The there's this way that I can kind of roll into a sort of aggressive persecutor type of energy when it comes to like this shows up a lot in the context of aging. There's a sense of, come on, we like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Of course aging is a problem. Like there's this aggressive energy. The related pattern in me where when I'm trying to share something that is alive for me, it's like I know something and I think it might be able to help you. Let me show you. This gets a mix of different energies, but it often includes some rescuer element. But there's this push that keeps coming up. Let me show you. Do you understand this point? Right? There's an energy that I keep adding, and that when I step back and I go, okay, that is a useful tool, but I didn't ask for the tool. And the thing that had that tool arise was a desire to manipulate rather than engaging and trusting others. So like lots and lots and lots of patterns where I keep dealing with the symptoms, but it's like post-processing. I'm dealing with it after it's arisen. How do I get these things to not arise anymore? And today I got an answer. I am really happy with this. It's a theoretical answer right now. So this might turn out, oh, in the practice, this is complicated. But the reason the theory is so precious, so exciting to me is because it's based on past instances that have worked before for me. Who knows how much this generalizes? I can see the way that this plays with what I am in service to, how this interacts with clear knowing. So this is something that, to the extent that I can serve clear knowing in others, then I might be able to help others to use this method. Or maybe it's just accessible. Maybe it's just perfectly clear on its own. I don't know. But I can see the hope. For me, there's excitement of, oh, I can be free. I see how to be free, and it's fun. And I can use my strengths. This is really exciting. So the essence of it, like basically all the things that are actually at the core of how I work, it comes back to how I relate to math. I haven't talked about this very much in this video series. I used to mention this a lot more, and I found that okay, this can be a little bit opaque, and it hasn't come up naturally yet. But here, we get into this. My master's degree is in mathematics. My PhD is in math education. To a very large extent, I feel like what I am doing is cultivating, I'm applying mathematical techniques and tools and ways of thinking to spirituality instead of to mathematical structures. It's not exactly right, but it's very close. It's a lot closer than you might think. So when I was a kid, when I was first learning algebra, there's a particular type of extra restriction that I would give myself. And so one way this shows up is if I look at something like x plus 4 equals 7. Okay, so I was like learning really basic algebra, like, oh, when you have an unknown quantity and you add 4 to it and you get 7, how much is the unknown quantity? And just learning algebraic techniques from there. So from there, there's like a pain in my heart. I want to go meta for a moment, because there's a way where there's a part of me. I understand the pain that's associated with math. Okay, I really do understand. That might deserve its own full story. I've written about this before. I have a pretty vivid background in the experience of both personally and also working with a lot of people about what the it is a trauma. It is a type of trauma that is associated with mathematics and mathematical teachings and ideas. When you say things like for a lot of people, there's a flood of very unpleasant energy that arises in the body when they encounter something like x plus 4 equals 7. Now I'm going to talk about mathematical techniques. I am, but I want you to understand two things as I go into this. The first is that well, actually, maybe I can maybe the thing I want to say is actually the same across the two. So the mathematics, most people have never been taught mathematics. Not the way I mean it, not the way that the discipline was created, okay? Not the way that I think is relevant. Most people are taught computation. And usually in a way that is almost perfectly designed to traumatize the children who are approaching it, to alienate them in an emotionally painful way from their own inner knowing. Mathematics, the word, like you think of like a polymath. A polymath is someone who knows a lot of things. Mathematics is the art of knowledge. That's actually the original, we still have the original Greek name for it. The Greek name, mathematics, when translated into Latin, is like it's the art of knowing. Like the art of knowing became scientia in Latin, which is where we get our word science from. And so these are domains that have to do, originally they had to do with interacting with the world and understanding it well. Not memorizing facts, not memorizing algorithms and learning where to solve problems. It was never about solving problems. It just turned out to be such a powerful tool. Such a powerful tool. That for solving different problems that were very practical, for building empires. That it became something that as a culture we really, really invested in finding ways to get people to do. But if you train people in insight, if you have a population that is trained in insight, it is not as ready to accept normal ideas. A mind that is well trained in the discipline of knowing can't be confused. And a huge amount of culture is based on confusion and pain that gets cut straight through with a clear mind. So there's no conspiracy needed. I don't mean to claim that anybody planned this. This is a natural result of what's called mimetic evolution. But as a result, the versions of mathematics that could actually thrive in cultures where like everybody's going to be educated in mathematics, well, they're going to be educated not in the art of knowing, but in the computational techniques that the culture needs to be able to extract value from people. Because that's the model we're running under. We've been running under that model for a few centuries now. So when I'm giving these examples, when I'm looking at x plus 4 equals 7, please understand, I am not talking about a thing that may have caused you pain. I'm talking about an example that accesses something very deep. And this is exactly what I want to talk about here, this depth. Because this depth is not about numbers. It's not about shapes. It's about understanding. It just so happens that numbers and shapes have some very nice properties that make it easy to get feedback for training the mind. Okay, so side rant. complete. Let me jump into the content here. So when I was first learning algebra and I was looking at x plus 4 equals 7, it would be very easy for me to practice the computation of subtract 4 from both sides to isolate the x, and then I have x is equal to 7 minus 4. So x is equal to 3. I have solved the problem. Next problem. But the thing is that if I'm just rearranging the symbols and then I call it solved, I'm literally being a computer, I'm being a machine. The thing that I wanted was for every movement to make sense. Okay, so that desire, right, I would love for that to be clear, because the desire, the cause of that desire is the essence I serve. That is what I'm calling clear knowing. So just feel it, taste it. Just a hint there. So for me, the thing I was doing is looking at x plus 4 equals 7. So I would pause and I would go, what is this statement saying? It says that if you take some quantity and you add 4 to it, you have the same result as having 7. Okay, so then there's this thing of, well, first, I can subtract 4 from both sides. Why? And I knew the answer. Like I already knew the answer. Like I knew the algorithm. I could just very fast. Okay? But slowing down and going, but wait, let me feel each step. Let it make sense in my body. So the same way that it's not just symbols, x plus 4 equals 7, how do I manipulate the symbols? It's pause. What does this feel like? Some quantity plus some unknown quantity plus a known quantity is a different known quantity. So I know that in abstract what I can do is, if I take the known quantity and I remove it from both piles, then there's this weird effect where the equation shows, well, if I remove the 4 and I remove 4 from the 7, then I happen to have x equals 3. But why would that be true? Why would the fact that the first statement is true mean that the next one is true? How is subtracting 4 from both sides retaining the truth of the statement? Well, if it's the same amount and I'm doing the same thing to both sides, it's got to be the same thing. Okay, so then I can feel why it's going to retain the truth. And then, do I really get to say that if it's just isolated the unknown quantity, and then there's an equal sign, and then there's this other, there's this whole balancing thing, there's a balancing metaphor, then I can feel it out, and then there's, what I'm waiting for is a kind of, right, that's true. What Perry Chase might call a clunk. Perry Chase being one of my teachers here. So this sense of, oh, right, I can feel the truth of that. So I'm feeling the truth of each statement, each part. Does it make sense? And then I can feel why. Not just how, but why. I can go from the x plus 4 equals 7 down to x equals 3. So that means that x is 3. Does it have to mean it? Yes, yes it does. It does. Okay, okay. All right, now I've solved it. So that encodes the secret. That's the whole thing. It's the process. So what I'm looking at is how. So I watched this actually enact for me earlier this evening. I was on a bit of a car ride visiting my sister on the other side of town. And on the way back, I noticed an energy arise having to do with a kind of conversation that I will sometimes have like with someone in my life, and how there's like this, I would feel the rescuer energy, and even in my mental simulation I was noticing, oh, there's this rescuer energy. But the problem I was running into before, the thing that was creating this difficulty with how do I dissolve the rescuer energy? How do I make it so that I can actually see the value of them living their lives and trust them to live their lives well? It's their life. You're doing you perfectly. The problem is, I could see in abstract why it's good to view everyone else as living their lives perfectly, to actually respect their sovereignty, and why I want to release any kind of rescuer energy, so that's antithetical to the first point. The way in which, even if I have difficulty releasing the rescuer energy, how what I want to do with that is enjoy the fact that it is difficult, because this bit about, like, there's, I don't want to go into the details about this too much, but I have a previous video about solving the problem of evil. Coming to prefer what is because it's here, because it's true. Finding a way to fit my desires with reality so that more and more, ever more, I find that I love what is. Whatever that might be, I love it. And cultivating that capacity, I believe that actually solves the problem of evil. Okay? I won't go into the logic of that here, but the point is that I believe this, and I'm trying to embody it. Okay? So here I am looking at these judgments I have of this person. Of like, oh, you're rolling in your own kind of victim energy, and I'm not going to put up with that. Oh wait, no, there's a jab. How do I deal with the jab? Oh no, now I'm struggling and I'm getting value from the struggle. Oh God, now what do I do? Right. So the thing is, the trouble I was getting into is that I have these abstract proofs, which is like knowing abstractly. If I have x plus a quantity equals another quantity, then I subtract the known quantity from both sides, and that will isolate x, and then the quantity on the other side will give me the value for x. Great. But the problem is that even if I make sense of, even if I can see the logic of it, and even if I can feel the logic of the proof, so to speak, that doesn't make it immediately click that when I'm looking at x plus 3 equals 7, sorry, or x, I guess what I've been saying is x plus 4 equals 7. That doesn't make it immediately click that, oh, we'll subtract 4, and therefore x equals 3. It doesn't make x feel like 3. It doesn't create this somatic experience of the clarity of that instance yet, because I have to walk through the proof in the specific instance. So the process that I use to make sense of unknown quantity plus a known quantity equals total, known total. Therefore, unknown quantity equals total minus known quantity. And just feeling the logic of that and tracing not only that it's true, but how I got there, why it's true. Okay, so there's a process of doing that in the abstract, and then when I'm looking at it in a specific instance, feeling x plus 4 equals 7. Okay, and so I'm removing the 4, and so x equals 3, and that's true. Yes, that's true. And it makes sense. Yes, and x being 3, and x can't be anything other than 3. Okay, got it. So it's doing exactly the same move as the general proof, but it's zoomed in on the detail. So in this case, I'm looking at, I know I don't want a rescuer energy, because I don't want rescuer energy in general. And I have this thought process about, if I bring in a rescuer energy, here are all of the dynamics and here are all of the energetics of why that creates a problem. But I still have to apply that reasoning to the specific instance and see precisely, how am I harming myself by the rescuer energy? Oh, in this instance, it is specifically the way in which I am feeling this, like the rescuer energy is causing a pain because there's a tension of needing to make this other person do something different. Okay? And a fear that I can't. So I can feel the discomfort in my body. And the way in which feeling in that moment, oh, right there, I am looking outward for this sensation. And here I'm being a little vague because I'm trying to I'm doing a lot of inner phenomenology. I'm going in a lot of the experiences, and I'm not trying to go through this example in too much detail, because I think that the amount of detail will get a little overwhelming. It would be sort of like solving a quadratic formula or solving a quadratic equation verbally. It would get a little confusing. I anticipate it would be. But there is this feeling of where the richness is in my body that would resolve the pain, and noticing the way in which, by focusing in this instance with this individual on what they're doing different, what I want them to do differently, and using that as the place where I'm trying to get satisfaction, I can feel the specific spots in my body, in the pit of my stomach and in my chest, where the discomfort is. The general recognition of why rescuer energy is a painful pattern to enact doesn't tell me specifically which parts of the body in each specific instance is going to hurt. But in this case, I can zoom in and go, oh, it's right there and there. Right. And on top of that, I can even go through the loop of the logic, the mental logic of seeing precisely how my bringing in an energy of trying to rescue, any hint of it, how it specifically, in this case, plays into the dynamic of the person. Right? So me leaning in and saying, me essentially leaning in by saying, look, I'm not going to play your game anymore. I'm going to do this other thing. You should clean this up, because I'm not going to deal with you in this way. It's like an attempt to draw boundaries, but there's a little bit of a little. And so catching that little jab in there, it's like, you clean up your shit. That's actually a little bit of persecutor energy. But like, I'm trying to pressure them into doing something different. Okay, so I can see exactly how my doing that is likely to stimulate them and feed into the thing that I was reacting to in the first place. Now, in this case, I'm not actually giving the example because I'm imagining it, and I'm trying not to I try not to specify whom I'm talking about as a matter of wanting the individual not to be dragged into this particular video. Then when I'm looking at this, I can see precisely the details, the same way that instead of talking about x plus known quantity equals total, therefore x equals total minus known quantity. Right? That is correct, but has less detail than x plus 4 equals 7. Therefore, x equals 7 minus 4, which is 3. Okay? So getting in, like, there's some surprising things, like in the theorem, in the overall logic, I can see how there are these two quantities at the end, the total minus known quantity, but they actually combine and they look like one thing at the end when I actually enact it in a case. And that makes each individual instance more alive in a particular way. So the same thing is happening when looking at the rescuer energy. And I notice that in playing with that, I actually can get much more precise about where specifically, in this case, not only is the rescuer energy creating a difficulty, but why. And I do the same thing. I'm not just tracing it mentally, but I'm tracing it mentally and holding it the same way I was holding each of those steps for doing the algebra. Just holding it and going, and here is where the problem shows up with the rescuer energy. Can I really feel that? Can I feel how I am amplifying their drama? Okay, yeah, I can feel how I'm amplifying their drama. Not just understand it, but feel it in the body. That process of tracing the logic and then sitting with it is like the mind dialoguing directly to the body, saying, here's the general proof, here is a specific instance, let's look at this instance. And the body going in each case, right, right. But what about this? Okay, right. Normally I think of the body as being sort of the ground of truth. It's the instrument for sensing truth of reality. But there's also something about the body seems to be where the patterns get stuck. And now I am seeing a possibility, not for, oh, I'll digest all of these patterns by shutting down the mind and feeling sensations in my body until the patterns magically dissolve. This is basically the formula that I had had before. And it was mowing weeds. It was not pulling up roots. It remains to be seen whether this does, but I can feel this reaching into the earth. I am excited. It feels like I'm not just suppressing a behavior by asserting a logic, going, no, 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 I don't want to do the rescuer pattern. And here I'm doing the rescuer pattern. Okay, take a breath, notice the energy, let go. It's like I'm running mental algorithms to suppress the sensation. But that isn't dialoguing directly with the thing in the core that generates the energy in the first place. Now I feel like I'm talking to that generator. It's absolutely clear. It's absolutely clear. Sometimes it's very fast and it moves around. It's a little bit tricky. One of the advantages of something like algebra or geometry is that you can make a drawing on a piece of paper, and then if your mind gets lost, you can stare at the paper and then look at it and go, okay, but that's the piece I'm trying to solve. Mathematics at the time of the Greeks was a lot harder. The time of the ancient Greeks was a lot harder because they didn't have reliable methods of drawing their stuff. I think they were working with papyrus at the time. My understanding of the history of paper around that time is a little fuzzy, but it's certainly nothing like it is today, where you can just grab a piece of paper, make some quick notes, or pull out a tablet and make some notes, right? So the ability to have a place to make a record is really powerful. It's an important, what John Vervaeke calls a psychotechnology. And I can feel the potential for some comparable psychotechnology here. Maybe literally using paper would do a good job. But the important part for me, from what I can tell, is I have the theorem, I have the general understanding of why a particular sort of energy does not make sense, or why a particular pattern or behavior does not make sense, or how it doesn't make sense in a specific type of circumstance, whatever. But there are quite a few that I'm looking at going, these are maladaptive approximations that I now have better solutions for. Like the rescuer pattern, completely unnecessary. And there's a lot of rearrangement that needs to happen there. Okay. So one is having the proof, which is to say, I not only mentally understand in general why a particular pattern doesn't make sense, but I can feel the truth. Like, it is true. I can see the truth. The truth has clunked. Yeah, that pattern needs to go. So that's the first piece. I have the theorem, right? The mental understanding and the embodiment. And the second piece is recognizing an instantiation of the pattern in the moment. There it is. Here I am playing out this rescuer role. Right now I'm actually not. I'm just excited. I'm sharing. To me, this is fun. It's hopeful, and I'm putting this forward with a sense of utter freedom, which to me is actually, it's a fantastic example of the thing that I'm talking about. I don't feel a need to rescue anyone here. I'm sharing I'm sharing of this essence of precision, of clear knowing, that it is possible to clearly know a pattern so much that the guts, the energetics get, oh, oh, we can be free of this. We can do this instead. Right? So having the proof, recognizing the pattern in real time in a specific instance, walking through the proof, not the fact of the theorem, but the proof, the process by which this is derived. Super important. Right? This is, again, I want to reference this part of most of the, particularly American culture, but this, I think this might be worldwide at this point, but it's especially thick in American culture. This fear of numbers, math phobia. Math phobia is, it is not a natural thing. People aren't born with math phobia. People are traumatized into math phobia. Okay? But like, be careful about blaming other people for that. Like, this is just part of the system. It's part of how it works. So when I'm talking about proofs, I do mean the thing that, like two-column proofs, there's something about that kind of process that that does gesture towards the thing that I'm talking about. However, two-column proofs in particular are a terrible example. Terrible, terrible example, because I have this whole rant, like PhD in math education. I have a few rants about how math is taught. A few issues with a lot of it. So, but when I'm saying proof, what I mean is the process by which you go from a question to an answer, such that your inner knowing, your inner clear knowing, sees and gets that each step is true, and from that sees the whole, that the solution in fact is an answer to the original question. That's a proof. It has nothing to do with following some kind of rules about what kinds of axioms you can pull on or yada yada. Those are training tools. Those have only ever been useful as training tools. Well, there's some cute things that computers can do with them that have nothing to do with training humans, but for what I am trying to point out, for the power and beautiful thing that I'm trying to point at, the value of anything like a two-column proof is that it can train you to feel what proving is like. And what I'm describing in terms of these energetics and relating to patterns is an example of applying the method of proving. This is lit up so much for me. I feel like the world makes tremendously more sense to me now as well. There's a specific instance of this that I got particularly good at a number of years ago, having to do with applying something known as Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and walking through the proof of the theorem in a bunch of cases where you wouldn't think to apply the proof. This is part of how I got to the thing that if you've listened to any of my other videos, when I talk about how scientific materialism is a great paradigm, fantastically powerful, and also it is utterly full of itself and is completely clueless about its own foundations and the fact that its foundations don't make any sense. What I'm talking about is when you actually walk through the proof of Gödel's incompleteness theorem while looking at the structure of scientific materialism, you find exactly the place to look at to see where there is a gap in the paradigm. I can tell you the result. I've mentioned this a number of times. The short answer is, where's the math? Where's the knowing that the math is reliable coming from? It can't be from the molecules and neuronal structures in the brain, because that's a model. And you're saying that you know you can trust the model because of the math, and you know that the math works because of how your brain operates. So there's a loop there. What that shows is consistency. It doesn't show foundation. So where do you start? Right? This is one of the recurring issues that shows up. And this is not unique to scientific materialism. It's just that scientific materialism kind of took over the Western psyche. And so this is the point I'm making is not actually about materialism. It's about, or even about Gödel's incompleteness theorem. It's just highlighting there's this general phenomenon of what does it mean to embody the act of proving in each instance. This is an art. There's a very powerful art, and just feeling this connection and realizing this is how to uproot patterns. It's always an empirical question, because this is like one of the differences between science and math is when you have a great theory and all the math works out, you still need to run an experiment to see how it goes. So we'll see how this goes, but I'm pretty excited. Okay, so I see there's a comment. I have to lean forward to read it. Nikhil, hello. Nikhil Sukul says, this sounds like a filter. Information is filtered for degrees of truth. And yet you're mentioning the feeling of that filter, which sounds like it goes beyond the cold chatter of the mind. This is very cool. Yeah, I don't quite know how to relate to calling it a filter. It feels to me a lot more like I do think it is very cool. Yes, very much so. But to me, this is more like, so in previous videos, I mentioned this business about how the mind cannot matter unless its roots are grown into the material world. There's a reason why material and matter, does it matter, and is it, and materialism, like all of that. Funnily enough, the root of all those words is the Latin word for mother. It is a reference to Mother Earth. Is it of the earth? Does it have roots growing into the ground? That's the actual origin of all. Shattered experience by default. And it is shattered in a very particular way that we typically don't notice as shattered, because its job is to isolate and analyze. This is something that Ian McGilchrist would call the left hemisphere of the brain. We're saying is mostly left hemispheric functions. So rooting the mind's activity in matter, in the material world, helps to make it so that what those thoughts are about has relationship to truth. So when I'm looking at this really foundational thing of, here I have this thought, is the thought true? Is this step true? So there's something very beautiful and powerful about, like with algebra, it's very possible to have something like 2x minus 5 equals 13. And then you can quickly just go, okay, so you can add pop that over, and so you have 2x equals 18, so x equals 9. You can just very quickly maneuver the symbols around. It's very quick. And that doesn't require knowing what any of the symbols mean. That's actually a power. That's why we can build computers. Computers operate on the fact that you can, if you make a machine move rocks around in a specific pattern, and a human assigns meaning to the rocks, as long as the patterns that we've gotten the machine to move the rocks around in match the type of meaning that the human is assigning to the rocks, then the things the machine does will be correct. This is the basic insight of computers, that you don't actually need a meaning-making mind to be involved in all the middle steps if you have the rules right. But for a human mind, if we want some part of our inner machinery, the automatic stuff, to do something different, it's necessary to bring the meaning back in. It's necessary for the programmer to step in. So what so to me this seems, I don't quite know how to relate this to being a filter. And I think if it clicks for you as a filter, by all means keep that metaphor. Okay, that's the important part. For me, there's this element of seeing each detail. I'm not pushing things out. I'm looking at each of them going, what does this mean? Okay, and now what does this mean? And when I ask, what does this mean? What I'm asking is, how does it ring in my body? Can I find the truth? Doing, like for the algebra, I can quickly run through the algebra, and then I can step back and walk through each step because I know that the steps are correct because they follow the rules, and I know the theorem that the rules are correct. But I still have to walk through the proof in this instance to feel it. And then when I have felt it, I will have deepened my knowledge of the theorem. So doing that process means that, for one thing, I get better at walking through the theorem. I get better at walking through the proof specifically. I can walk through the proof of the theorem each time. And I get faster at it. I get more elegant at it. And then after a while, I can execute the program very fast, just doing the algebra. Bam, 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 very quick. Okay? But it's different because now it's saturated with meaning. Every part is clear, and I understand why. And I can slow down and go, yeah, and the reason this works is because of this feeling. Very precise. So like that, like mathematics, like the mathematics of numbers is a beautiful space for really getting this. But what I'm talking about is the energetics, just feeling in the details, oh, here is the rescuer pattern. Here is the proof. Yeah. So I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah, I'm excited too. Let me see if it's doing anything funny. Nope, I think that's it. Okay, so I'm energized and like half an hour past when I normally go to bed, but I wanted to be sure to do a video and I had this on my mind, so thanks for watching, and we'll see how this goes. Nikhil pops in and says a little more. Let me jump in and look to this. I like the thread you're going on, so don't let me stop you. Yep. You can't. The filter. My mind is given information through the senses. A question comes up. Does this information mean what I want? Filter tells me yes or no. In a similar way, when I try to learn new philosophy, I need to put it against my current worldview or understanding. It must make sense according to everything else, which is where I think the filter comes from. Though all that you say does make me wonder about the conviction of those past accepted truths. Yeah, so actually I want to take a moment to address this. What you're talking about is relating the thought of what you're staring at to other thoughts that you have decided that you like and accept. That's what I'm reading. If that doesn't match, account for that. But if my projection's right, it sounds like that's what you're doing. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about. It's importantly not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about looking at the thing that is right in front of me and comparing it to my body, my lived experience of truth. And so this is on par with, like, okay, so in relativistic physics, in special and general relativity, the amount of energy that is stored in these glasses is enough that if I were to really, in fact, I can make it even more precise. If I just take, so it's got this little screw holding the hinge together, right at the top there. If I were to take out that screw, got this little screw, and I were to convert it into thermal energy, it would destroy the city I'm in. Okay? So when you talk about that whole E equals mc squared, we have, it's hard for our lived intuitions to understand just how big c is, just how big the speed of light really is. So, so a tiny, tiny piece of mass, absolutely huge explosion. Okay? So when I stare at that, my body calls bullshit. and the reason is I can't do that. That's maybe through some kind of sorcerous thing, through some kind of weird physics magic engine thingy. I'm not quite sure what it would look like. Maybe some version of a fusion reactor could do this. But at this point, I'm almost saying magic words. Like I know that the word fusion is associated with some kind of process that converts mass into energy. I know that it lights up the sun. But these are associated ideas. This is where it starts going into relating to other ideas. The fact is that screw is not going to turn into energy. That's not coming from an abstraction. It's not coming from comparing it to some other theory. It's me looking at that and checking in with my body and going, nope. So the same thing is happening when I am looking at something like this whole bit with the rescuer energy. When I'm looking at the rescuer energy arising in me, I'm not comparing my thoughts about why the rescuer energy is something that I don't want to do to my thoughts about other parts of the psyche. If I do that, then I'm lost in thought. I'm not trying to reconcile all these things and filter them against one another. I am looking at the experience of the rescuer energy arising, and then I am using this thought of a theorem, the thing that I'm calling a theorem, the proof that I have in mind that the rescuer energy is something I don't want anymore. I have decided I am done with it, and now I'm just asking how. But the reason I decided is for reasons that ring true in my body. Every step when I think through it, when I'm looking at the thought, I feel the truth in my body. And so now, when I boot up that idea, this proof, and I look at this specific instance with this person in my life, I can walk through the proof that already rang true in my body. And the ringing true in my body happens again, but more precisely. I can see exactly how in this instance, oh, I'm encouraging this person's anger at the world by giving them something to be angry about in this specific instance. Anger at the world and me feeding it back is not a universal thing for rescuer energy, but in this instance, my adding it, in this case, does. And it's for the same reason why, in general, I recognize I don't want the rescuer energy. But that's not because I'm thinking about it, it's because I'm looking at it and comparing it to my body's experience in that instance. Okay, so it's not about comparing it to other ideas, it's about comparing it to this. I hope that's clearer. And if I misrepresented Uniqlo, then I apologize. Okay, so I'm going to call that good. Thanks so much for jumping in. Yeah, have a great night.